AskReddit. What secret are you hiding from your family? I won $250,000 on a scratch-off ticket last year. Nobody in my family, but my wife and I know. I don't get forced to work holidays. I volunteer to work them to get out of family dinners. I grew up thinking I was part of the X-Men and would train in the backyard/swimming pool. My dad thought I was drowning one day because I held my breath underwater for so long, so he jumped in to save me. I was in like 7th grade. I never told my dad holding my breath for as long as I could was part of my mutant training. I never told them I thought I was part of the X-Men because I didn't want the government to get involved. That I talked my mom out of a suicide attempt. I volunteer at a suicide hotline. I often take calls from people on the brink of jumping or pulling the trigger. Everyone who calls us are anonymous to us on the caller display. I worked late one evening and got a call transferred to me from a lesser experienced responder because the person on the phone was very non-responsive to questions and apparently said they had a gun in their hands. When I picked up the phone and asked what their name was, I immediately recognized my mom's voice when she said her name. Funnily enough, she mentioned that I sounded familiar, like her son. I asked if that was a problem to her, because then I could hand her over to my colleague. She told me no, at least I feel like I'm confessing to a person I love. Then she went on about her failed adulthood, a husband she didn't love anymore, rapes by her now deceased father, etc. It was tough just sitting there and receive the burdens of a lifetime dumped onto you by your own mother. We talked for about 2 hours and she put away her gun. I heard it releasing the mag and hung up. I called my dad right after asking him where mom was. She had apparently just walked in the door when I called. Knowing their house, she must have been in the shed, dad's man cave. I don't know if she knew it was me or not, but she hasn't mentioned anything and I'm not going to. That I've been dumped by my fiancé and I'm supposed to be getting married in December. I dated a girl, found out she was legitimately a psychopath and had been determined to be a psychopath by a psychologist. She fucked my head up really bad and left me suicidal for several months. I was close to suicide, but I decided there were things I wanted to do before I die, and one of them was buy a sailboat and go on a long sailing trip. So I decided I would do that first, and if I still wanted to kill myself afterwards, I could do it then. I bought the boat in another state and sailed it to my home state over several hundred miles, and I don't want to kill myself anymore. When I was 14, my friend and were drinking at my house when my parents weren't there. I lived in a small town and there wasn't much to do. Not that I'm defending 14-year-olds drinking, I'm just giving context. My sister, 4 years my elder, had a 1997 Honda Civic in the garage. My friend and I thought it would be a good idea to stealthily open up the garage door, push it down the road, hop in, turn it on, and go for a little joyride on the country roads. It was a rainy day, so the roads were still slick, and I got the great idea to pull the e-brake and do a bit of a slide. I slide directly into a ditch. The front bumper mounts brake, and the hubcap is slightly bent into the rubber of the wheel. We take it back home and begin to drunkenly try to fix it with zip ties and crowbars. It was a shoddy job, but it held. About a week later, my sister gets into a low-speed car accident on that exact side of the bumper. She still doesn't know, but I bet the mechanic working on her car knew something was up. This was 13 years ago. That when my in-laws passed, they left us millions, enough to retire and travel the world. Last time I talked to my mother more than a year ago, she made fun of my wife's white trash parents. Fuck 'em. Donated sperm to multiple lesbian couples. Through private arrangement in the home, not through clinics. I have 3 kids and 3 more on the way. Right, so my boyfriend is a pretty good cook, and over the years there isn't really anything that I've been able to cook better than him. I try. He decided last spring that he really wanted to make all these different kinds of cake, and they were all gorgeous apart from the red velvet one, which he just couldn't seem to master. It was too soft and sunk a bit. I wanted to give it a try as well, so I bought all the ingredients and found a new recipe, but my cake was still just as bad. I was pretty annoyed that I wasn't able to make it properly, as before I met him, I was really good at making cakes. So I kinda went out and bought a pre-made Betty Crocker red velvet cake mix and made the most delicious cake ever from it, and may have lied and said I made it from scratch. To this day I haven't told him, and every time I say I'm going to make it, I have to time it so he is out at work and take the Betty Crocker packaging to a bin far away from the house so he won't be suspicious. I'm so ashamed, but the feeling of triumphant cake making couldn't be any better. Worst part was his son asked me for the recipe a few weeks ago so he could try it in his cooking class at school for the end of the year, and I had to make something up about how it was a secret recipe and it's the only thing I could cook better than his dad, when in reality it's all a damn packet mix. Shame, shame, shame. Not my family, a friend's. When I was 13, my best friend and I were at his sister's condo. We had to babysit his niece who was 5. We went to the complex pool and did normal kid stuff. The niece had water wings on, and we were doing general pool grab ass stuff like jumping in, trying to flip, etc. The girl at some point had slipped out of her water wings. I looked over and saw an image that will be with me until I die. 2 yellow water wings floating on the water, and the girl 2 to 3 feet down, motionless, arms and legs hanging effortless, blonde hair spread out. My friend just screamed and froze. I had jumped in the pool to swim to her, but don't remember deciding to do it. I was just moving. I came up under her and pushed her up. I had no thought, plan, or clue, just did. I pushed her out of the water and the force of my hand on her stomach pushed water out of her lungs. I got her to the side and my friend pulled her out. She coughed and started crying. My friend was afraid he'd get in trouble, so we never spoke of it. The girl was too young and didn't say or a call. Now she's in her early 40s with 2 kids. Nobody knows it happened. I met my biological father and he's a lot like me. I've been forbidden from ever meeting the man since I was little. I know my Uncle Joe is a rapist. Joe is a close family friend. He's been around my whole life. When I was a teenager, I walked in on my uncle during a Christmas party having sex with a girl I'll call Carmen, who was a couple of years older than me. I presumed it was 6 because the noises were right and Carmen had a rep for being wild and preferring older men. Joe was married. I just thought he was being a dick. In the 1980s, there was a bunch of unreported rapes in our town. It was an open secret. One night, when I was about 8, I accidentally overheard a very drunk Joe confessing to being the guy who did it. My father dismissed him, told he was a liar. I went away for a couple of months and came back. Someone told me Carmen was accusing Joe of rape. She was drugged, and by the time she realized there'd been a rape, there wasn't any physical evidence left. Joe denied having sex with her. She'd went to the cops. Nothing had been done, but the rumors got out. So I went to the police and gave a statement about that night and what I heard. Joe was questioned, but it didn't go anywhere. My father wouldn't forgive me if he knew. I was hiding the fact that I intended to kill myself at the age of 20 if I wasn't happy yet. My birthday is in 2 months, but life has made a turn for the best. I intend to see where this long road takes me now. My escapism fantasy. Ever since I've started working in a cubicle 7 years ago, I've had daily daydreams of running away. My life is boring. My family is nearly non-existent. Most of them have died. Holidays suck. Ever been to a Thanksgiving dinner for 2? One day I'm going to quit my job, hop in the car and drive out west. Just don't know when that day will come. A year ago, we got a new, massive wood dining table, which cost around €3,000. On the first day of ownership, I knocked over a glass of wine. The table was intended to get a blanket, but this was before there was a blanket on it. In panic, I cleaned it with a cotton cloth. Turns out, there was some sand or something on the cloth, left nasty scratches on the table. I covered it up with a blanket immediately. No one saw it. A few days later I ordered a rubber cover to put it under the tablecloth. Told my parents this would protect the table if someone knocks a glass of wine. They didn't notice because the rubber cover never gets removed, only the tablecloth. That I smoke pot all day every day, and they frequently use me as an example of what you can be like if you aren't a stoner.